He took 8 bullets for a child. Now the galaxy's deadliest woman stands at his door. The alarms had been screaming for 20 minutes when Ethan Rycroft heard the coordinated footsteps. He pressed himself against the cold metal wall, one hand clutching his ribs where a shank had opened him up. Blood seeped between his fingers. The prison riot had erupted during evening count. 300 inmates suddenly moving as one. Ethan had seen riots before. This wasn't one. This was an operation. 6 inmates passed his hiding spot, moving toward the residential wing. They carried stolen energy weapons that should have been locked in the armory. Someone had given them access. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to stay hidden. He was a war criminal rotting in Blackreach mining colony on a frozen moon. Nobody here deserved his protection. He'd forfeited that right the day he'd followed orders and pulled the trigger on 43 civilians. But those footsteps were moving toward the warden's private quarters. He pushed off the wall, biting back a groan. His body remembered how to move despite 3 years of atrophy. Military training went bone deep. He followed at a distance, watching the group bypass security checkpoints that should have locked them out. The residential wing was eerily quiet. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. The armed inmates reached a reinforced door and one of them produced an access card. The door slid open. Ethan's blood went cold, the warden's personal quarters. He should have turned back. But his feet carried him forward, and by the time he processed the decision, he was already through the door. The apartment was spacious, actual furniture, personal effects, the smell of something that wasn't recycled rations. The inmates spread out, weapons raised, checking rooms. Ethan stayed low behind an overturned couch. "Find the kid," one of them growled. "Make it quick." A child's voice cried out from a bedroom, small, terrified. Ethan was moving before thought caught up. He burst into the bedroom and saw him, a boy, maybe 7, huddled in the corner. Blue skin, large dark eyes wide with terror, pointed ears pressed flat. Krythian, the warden's son. 3 inmates crowded the doorway, energy weapons coming up. Ethan crossed the distance and wrapped himself around the boy. The first shot hit him in the shoulder. The impact spun him, but he stayed upright, kept his body between the weapons and the child. The second shot punched through his side. The third caught his thigh. He heard the boy screaming beneath him, felt small hands gripping his shirt. The world reduced to sensation, burnt flesh, blood in his mouth, crushing weight as energy bolts tore through tissue. 4, 5, his legs gave out and he crashed to the floor, still covering the boy. 6, 7, he couldn't feel his left arm. Just kill them both. The 8th shot hit him in the back. Everything went white. Then the door exploded inward and prison security flooded the room. Weapons fire. The inmates went down. Ethan's vision tunneled. He felt hands pulling him off the boy, heard urgent voices. The child was crying in Krythian. The last thing he saw was the boy's face, tears streaming down blue cheeks, those huge dark eyes fixed on him. Then nothing. Ethan woke 3 days later. His chest felt compressed, each breath conscious effort. Regenerative gel. They'd packed his wounds with it. Medical-grade stuff, not the cheap synthetic tissue they usually wasted on prisoners. He tried to move and discovered restraints on his wrists and ankles. The medical bay was too quiet, just him and the steady beep of monitors. Through the observation window, 2 guards stood alert. The door opened. A guard entered. "You're awake. The warden wants to see you." "Lucky me," Ethan managed. "You're being moved to isolation. Protocol." Ethan closed his eyes. He'd known this was coming. Blackreach wasn't just a prison. It was where they sent war criminals to be forgotten. And under treaty provisions, certain Krythian officials had legal authority to carry out executions for war crimes. The warden had killed 17 humans since taking command. He was going to be 18. They transferred him to a private cell, cleaner than his old one, still outfitted with restraint points. His wounds ached beneath the wraps. He'd live long enough to die properly. Hours passed. When the door finally opened, Ethan understood immediately why they called her the galaxy's deadliest woman. Tavris Kael filled the doorway like a natural disaster given form. She stood 6'4", powerfully built. Her skin was deep blue marked with darker patterns that traced her cheekbones and disappeared beneath her tactical gear. White hair was pulled back severely, revealing sharp features and eyes the color of molten amber. She wore full combat gear, armored vest, weapons belt carrying a neural disruptor and a Krythian blade. This was a hunter. She dismissed the guards, the door sealed. Silence stretched between them. "Ethan Rycroft," she said finally. Her voice was harsh, deeply accented, controlled. Former Sergeant, 3rd Special Operations Battalion, convicted of war crimes, 43 civilians dead on Tavris, 15 of them children. "That's me. I have read your file 17 times. I know every operation, every order, every life you took." She stopped, amber eyes burning into him. "I came to this station specifically for you. I requested this assignment. I have waited 3 years for authorization to execute you." Ethan's throat was dry. "Then why am I still breathing?" Fury flickered across her face. "Because you saved my son." The words landed like a blow. "Jaren," Tavris said, voice fracturing before she reasserted control. 7 years old. He was having nightmares, so I let him stay in my quarters." Her jaw clenched. That decision nearly killed him. "Is he safe, physically unharmed?" Her hand went to the disruptor. "You took 8 bullets meant for him. The medical report says you should have died." Tavris crossed the distance. She leaned down, face inches from his. "Under Krythian law, a life debt cannot be ignored. You saved my son's life. I owe you." Her voice dropped to something dangerous. "And I hate that I owe you." She straightened. "You have made my duty complicated. I will find a way to honor both debts, justice for my people and the debt I owe you for Jaren's life. But do not mistake gratitude for mercy." Tavris turned toward the door, then paused. "I came here to kill you, Ethan Rycroft. I have killed 17 of your kind already. You were supposed to be the 18th. She looked back, amber eyes burning. "Now I have to figure out how to do my duty without violating my honor. And that is a problem I have never faced before." The door sealed behind her, leaving Ethan alone with the certainty that his life had just become far more complicated than simple execution. Ethan woke to find himself in different quarters. Not the isolation cell, not the medical bay. A room with actual amenities, a real bed, a desk, a viewport showing the frozen wasteland beyond the prison. Still a cell, but a gilded one. The door opened without warning. Tavris entered, carrying a data pad and what looked like medical supplies. She wore less armor today, just tactical pants and a fitted shirt that showed the corded muscle of her arms. The tribal markings continued down her neck, disappearing beneath the fabric. "You heal quickly for a human," she said, setting the supplies on the desk. "Perks of military augmentation?" Ethan replied. "Thought you were going to kill me." "I'm considering my options." She pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, amber eyes studying him with unsettling intensity. This close, he could see the faint scars that interrupted the patterns on her skin. Battle marks. She'd earned every one. "Tell me about Tavris," she said. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You've read the file. I want to hear it from you. Every detail, every decision." She leaned forward. "You will tell me, or I will find a legal justification to end this life debt. Your choice." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then began. "We were ordered to secure a settlement suspected of harboring insurgents. My Colonel Warren Ashford, said intelligence confirmed weapons caches and communication equipment. When we arrived, it was just families, farmers, a school." His voice went flat, clinical. "Ashford said they were covering for the insurgents, ordered us to sweep the buildings. When we found nothing, he changed the order, said we'd been compromised, couldn't leave witnesses." Tavris's expression didn't change, but her fingers curled against her thigh. "I followed the order," Ethan continued. 43 people, 15 children. I pulled the trigger because my commanding officer told me to, and I was too much of a coward to refuse." "Why didn't you refuse?" "Because soldiers don't question orders in the field. Because I trusted the chain of command. Because I was afraid." He met her eyes. "Pick whichever reason makes you feel better about killing me." Silence filled the space between them. "The others in your unit," Tavris said finally. "Where are they?" "Dead, suicides mostly, officially. Ethan's laugh was bitter. Funny how many soldiers who followed Ashford's orders developed sudden mental health crises. You think they were killed. I know they were killed. Ashford tied up his loose ends. I survived because I was already in prison, already convicted. Killing me would have drawn attention. Tavris stood abruptly and paced to the viewport. Her reflection in the glass showed tension in every line of her body. This Colonel Ashford, he gave similar orders before? I don't know. I only served under him for 6 months before Tavris. Ethan shifted, testing his healing wounds. Why? Because if what you say is true, you are not the war criminal I came to execute. You are a tool that was used and discarded. She turned back to him. And that changes the nature of my duty. Does it change the nature of your life debt? Her jaw clenched. No. The door chimed. Tavris moved instantly, positioning herself between Ethan and the entrance, hand going to her sidearm. The door opened to reveal Jaren, flanked by a guard. The boy's eyes went immediately to Ethan. Before Tavris could stop him, he darted across the room and stopped at the bedside, staring up with those huge dark eyes. You're awake, Jaren said in heavily accented standard. I am, Ethan replied carefully. You caught me when the bad men came. The boy's hand reached out, hesitated, then touched the bandage visible at Ethan's collar. You got hurt. Jaren, Tavris said sharply, you were told to stay in the secure wing. I wanted to see him, Jaren said, not looking away from Ethan. I wanted to say thank you. Tavris crossed to them, placed a hand on her son's shoulder. The gesture was protective, possessive, but she didn't pull him away immediately. You're very brave, Jaren told Ethan solemnly. You're the brave one, Ethan said. You didn't panic. You held on. Jaren smiled, small, tentative. Then Tavris was guiding him toward the door, murmuring instructions to the guard in Krythian. The boy waved once before disappearing. When Tavris turned back, her expression was shuddered. He should not have come here. He's a good kid. He is my son, and you are still a prisoner. She moved to the desk, pulling up files on her data pad. I have been reviewing the prison security footage. The riot was coordinated, professional. The target was Jaren specifically. The inmates who attacked had no prior connection to each other. They were paid. She swiped through data. And the payment authorization traces to an encrypted account that routed through 17 different systems before going cold. Ethan sat up slowly, ignoring the protest from his wounds. Someone wanted him dead. Someone wanted him dead, and you present when it happened, either to die as collateral damage or to be blamed. Tavris's amber eyes fixed on him. I reported this to prison administration. They assured me it was random violence. When I pushed, they stonewalled. How high up does this go? I don't know yet. She set the datapad down. But I intend to find out. And what am I while you're investigating? Still your prisoner. You are under my protection, Tavris said. The life debt demands it, but that does not mean I trust you. She moved closer, and Ethan caught the scent of her. Something clean and sharp, like winter air. She studied him with the same intensity she'd shown earlier, but something had shifted. The absolute certainty was gone, replaced by something more complex. I came here to kill you, she said quietly. I spent 3 years imagining it, planning it, the exact words I would say before I pulled the trigger. Her hand came up, fingers hovering near his jaw, but not quite touching. You have complicated everything. Ethan didn't move. I can't undo what I did at Tavris. No, you cannot. Her hand dropped. But perhaps you are not the monster I believed you to be. Perhaps you are just a man who made a terrible choice and has been paying for it ever since. Does that make it better? It makes it harder. She stepped back, creating distance. Stay in this room. Do not attempt to leave. I have questions that need answers, and until I have them, you remain alive. She moved toward the door, then paused. The way you looked at Jaren, she said without turning, that was not the look of a child killer. I've killed children, Ethan said flatly. That doesn't go away. No, Tavris agreed, glancing back. But perhaps it means you understand what you took, and that is more than most war criminals can claim. The door sealed behind her, leaving Ethan alone with the weight of her words and the dangerous realization that she was starting to see him as something other than a target. Tavris returned at night when the prison's artificial lighting dimmed to simulate sleep cycles. Ethan wasn't sleeping, hadn't really slept since Teraves, just existed in states of semi-consciousness, punctuated by nightmares. She entered without knocking, moving with that predatory grace that made her seem larger than her already impressive frame. She carried a bottle of something amber and 2 glasses. "You drink?" she asked. "Depends what you're offering." Krythian whiskey, very old, very expensive. She poured 2 measures and handed him one. And technically contraband in a human prison facility. Ethan took it, studying her. She'd changed from tactical gear into something less severe, dark pants and a sleeveless top that showed the intricate patterns covering her shoulders and arms. Her white hair was loose, falling past her shoulders. "What are we drinking to?" he asked. "Complications." She raised her glass, and the things we discover when we dig too deep. They drank. The whiskey burned going down, tasted like smoke and something floral he couldn't name. Tavris settled into the chair across from him, legs crossed, regarding him with those amber eyes. "I accessed classified military channels today," she said. "Used clearances I probably should not have used. Find anything interesting?" Ethan's hand tightened on his glass. "How many suicides?" 22, officially. The rest were accidents, random violence, 1 shuttle malfunction. Her gaze never left his face. "You were right, he has been cleaning house." "And now someone tried to kill your son. Why?" "Because I was assigned here specifically to execute you. Ashford would have known that. He saw an opportunity, arrange for Jaren to die, ensure you were present, let my grief finish what he started." She leaned forward. 2 problems solved. You dead, and no chance you ever talk. Except I saved him instead. "Yes, you did." Something complicated moved behind her eyes. "And now we are both targets. I started asking questions. That makes me a threat." Ethan stood, testing his balance. The regenerative treatments were working. His body felt almost functional again. He moved to the viewport, looking out at the frozen landscape. "What do you want from me?" "The truth, all of it." Tavris rose, crossing to stand beside him. "Every order Ashford gave, every operation you ran under his command, everything." "Why? What difference does it make?" "Because if I am going to become a fugitive for you, I need to know exactly what I am fighting for." Ethan turned to face her, close enough now to see the gold flecks in her amber eyes, the way her markings caught the low light. "You're not a fugitive yet." "No, but I will be when I refuse to execute you, when I help you escape." She held his gaze. "When I choose justice over duty." The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Ethan was acutely aware of her proximity, the heat radiating from her body, the controlled power in every breath she took. "You don't owe me that much," he said quietly. "I owe you my son's life, and I have spent 3 years hating you for crimes you committed under legal orders from a man who should have faced trial instead of receiving promotions." Her hand came up, fingers touching the edge of the bandage on his shoulder. "You are not innocent, but you are not the monster I believed you to be." "Tell me about the other operations," she said, not moving her hand. "Help me build a case against Ashford." So he did. Standing there in the dim light with her hand still resting against his shoulder, Ethan walked her through 6 months of operations under Ashford's command. The missions that felt wrong, the orders that pushed legal boundaries, the way Ashford always isolated his unit from the rest of the battalion, always ensured they operated without oversight. Tavris listened, occasionally asking questions, her tactical mind processing every detail. As he spoke, her fingers traced absent patterns on his shoulder, whether conscious or unconscious he couldn't tell. "There were others who questioned him," Ethan said. "A lieutenant. She filed a complaint about rules of engagement. Died in a training accident 2 months later." "What was her name?" "Sarah Henwick." Tavris pulled up her datapad with her free hand, fingers flying across the display. Her other hand remained on his shoulder, and neither of them acknowledged it. Found her. Training accident, officially, caused by equipment malfunction. She scrolled through data. Equipment that had been serviced 3 days prior by a maintenance crew that does not appear on any official roster. He's good at making things look clean. He is good at killing people and hiding the evidence. Tavris's jaw clenched, but he made a mistake with Jaren. He underestimated both of us. She looked up from the datapad, and the moments stretched between them. Her hand was still on his shoulder. His were at his sides, but he wanted to touch her, wanted to close the distance that felt both too much and not enough. "This is dangerous," she said quietly, and he wasn't sure if she meant the investigation or whatever was happening between them. "Yes, I do not make mistakes in judgment." "Neither do I." "Liar, but there was no heat in it. You followed illegal orders. That was a mistake." "I'm trying not to make that mistake again." Her thumb traced his collarbone just above the bandage. "What are you doing, Ethan?" Standing very still, trying not to make this complicated. "Too late for that." She stepped closer, and he could feel her breath against his jaw. "I came here to kill you. I brought 17 years of military discipline, 3 years of planning, absolute certainty in my purpose. And now I am standing in your room, drinking contraband whiskey, touching a war criminal, and considering treason against my own government to help him expose a conspiracy." Her free hand came up to his chest, pressing against his sternum. "You have ruined everything." "Do not apologize." Her voice dropped lower. "Unless you do not want this, unless I am reading this wrong." Ethan's hand finally moved, covering hers against his chest. "You're not reading it wrong." Tavris closed the remaining distance. Her mouth found his, hot, demanding, tasting of whiskey and something uniquely her. Ethan responded immediately, his hands finding her waist, pulling her closer. She was taller, stronger, and she took control of the kiss with the same intensity she brought to everything else. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she pressed her forehead to his. "This changes nothing about what you did," she said. "I know. And it changes nothing about the danger we are in." "I know that too." "Good." She kissed him again, briefer this time. "Then we understand each other." The alarm shattered the moment, loud, insistent, echoing through the facility. Tavris pulled back instantly, combat instincts overriding everything else. She moved to the door, pulled up a security feed on the panel. "Breach," she said, voice gone cold and tactical. "External defenses compromised, multiple craft landing without authorization." Ethan moved beside her, looking at the display. Armed figures in military-grade gear, moving with precision toward the residential sector. "Ashford's kill squad," he said. "They are here for both of us." Tavris turned to him, amber eyes hard. "And they will go through Jaren to get to us." She was already moving, grabbing weapons from a hidden compartment. She tossed him a pistol. "Can you fight?" "Try and stop me." Her smile was fierce and deadly. "Good, because we are about to go to war." Tavris moved through the corridors like a force of nature. Ethan followed, weapon raised, his body falling into combat rhythms he'd tried to forget. The alarm continued its wail, punctuated by distant weapons fire and the metallic echo of breaching charges. "Jaren is in the secure wing," Tavris said, voice clipped and professional. "Reinforced walls, biometric locks. We have maybe 5 minutes before they reach him." They hit the first group of mercenaries at a junction. 4 men, in black tactical gear, faces covered, weapons up. Tavris didn't slow. She dropped the first 2 before they could react. Precision shots that spoke to decades of training. Ethan took the 3rd with a shot to the chest. The 4th got off a burst that scorched the wall near Tavris's head before she put him down with a knife thrown with perfect accuracy. "You are rusty," she said, retrieving the blade from the corpse's throat. "It's been 3 years since anyone gave me a gun. Try not to die. It would complicate my honor debt." They kept moving. The secure wing was 2 levels down, accessible only through a series of checkpoints designed to withstand full assault. The mercenaries had bypassed the first 2. Inside help had to be. Ethan caught glimpses of prison guards dead at their posts, throats cut, efficient and silent. "How many?" he asked. "At least 20 landed. We have killed 4. Tavris paused at a corner, checked her datapad. They are converging on the secure wing from 3 directions. We cannot hold all the approaches. Then we don't. We get Jaren and fall back to defensible position. Where? Industrial sector. Heavy equipment, multiple exits, tight spaces. Ethan checked his weapons charge. We can use the terrain. Tavris looked at him for a moment, then nodded. You think tactically. I had forgotten you were a soldier before you were a prisoner. They reached the secure wing as the first breach charges detonated. The reinforced door buckled but held. Tavris's fingers flew across the biometric panel and the inner door slid open. Jaren huddled in the corner with 2 guards, both looking terrified. Mama, he said, relief flooding his face. Come here, little one, Tavris said, and her voice gentled in a way Ethan hadn't heard before. Jaren ran to her and she scooped him up with one arm, keeping her weapon ready with the other. We are going somewhere safe. The outer door exploded inward. Smoke and debris filled the corridor. Tavris handed Jaren to one of the guards. Take him to the industrial sector, cargo bay 3. If we do not arrive in 10 minutes, seal the bay and activate emergency beacon. Yes, Warden. Go. The guards disappeared down a service corridor. Tavris turned to Ethan, and in her eyes he saw the warrior fully unleashed. We buy them time. They positioned themselves at a choke point, a narrow corridor with limited cover but clear sight lines. The mercenaries came hard and fast, professional assault formation. Ethan and Tavris met them with concentrated fire that turned the corridor into a kill zone. She fought like nothing he'd ever seen. Krythians were naturally stronger and faster than humans, but Tavris had refined those advantages into something almost artistic. She moved between cover points with impossible speed, her shots finding targets with mechanical precision. When one mercenary got close, she dropped him with a strike to the throat that crushed his windpipe. Ethan covered her angles, called out positions, fell into sync with her rhythm. They'd never fought together before, but it felt natural, instinctive. Every gap in her awareness he filled, every threat he couldn't see, she eliminated. Reloading, he called. Tavris stepped into his position, laying down, suppressing fire while he changed power cells. A mercenary tried to flank them through a maintenance shaft. Ethan saw him first, put 2 shots through the grating. The body fell with a metallic crash. Moving, Tavris said, and he covered her as she repositioned. But there were too many. For every mercenary they dropped, 2 more appeared, professional, coordinated, willing to take casualties to push forward. We need to fall back, Ethan said. Agreed. They retreated in stages, covering each other, making the mercenaries pay for every meter of corridor. Ethan took a graze to his ribs, not deep, but enough to make him stumble. Tavris grabbed his arm, hauled him upright without breaking her shooting rhythm. Stay with me. Not planning on dying today. Good. I would hate to waste this ammunition. They reached a service lift that would take them down to the industrial level. Tavris hit the controls and they dropped, the mercenaries' weapons fire sparking off the closing doors. The descent took 30 seconds, long enough for Ethan to see the blood seeping through Tavris's shirt at her shoulder. You're hit. Barely. She checked her weapons charge. I have had worse. That's not reassuring. The lift doors opened onto the industrial sector, a maze of heavy machinery, forge equipment, and cargo containers stacked 3 high. The air smelled of metal and coolant. Emergency lighting cast everything in harsh shadows. They found cargo bay 3. The guards had sealed it as ordered, Jaren safe inside behind reinforced doors. Tavris spoke to him through the intercom, her voice controlled despite the blood on her shoulder and the exhaustion in her eyes. Stay there, little one. Do not open this door for anyone but me. Mama, you are hurt. I am fine. Be brave for me. She cut the connection and turned to Ethan. They will come for us here. We need to be ready. They had maybe 3 minutes. They used it to fortify positions, stack containers for cover, identify sight lines, and kill zones. Ethan's tactical mind cataloged every advantage, every piece of equipment they could weaponize. The forge, he said, pointing to the massive industrial equipment. We could rig an overload, create a thermal bloom, fry their electronics, and possibly collapse this entire section. You have a better idea? Tavris considered, then nodded. Do it. I will hold them at the main access. Ethan moved to the forge controls, while Tavris positioned herself behind a cargo container with clear line of sight to the primary entrance. He worked fast, overriding safety protocols, rerouting power feeds. The forge began to whine, temperature climbing rapidly. The mercenaries breached through 3 entry points simultaneously. Tavris opened fire, dropping the first 2 through the main access. Ethan abandoned the controls and joined her, taking position at a perpendicular angle that let him cover her flank. They fought with desperate intensity. The mercenaries had numbers and equipment, but Ethan and Tavris had terrain and motivation. Every shot counted. Every second mattered. Tavris moved between cover points, her combat sense guiding her through the chaos. Ethan watched her back, eliminated threats she couldn't see, trusted her to do the same for him. When his weapon overheated, she covered him. When she needed to reload, he stepped into the gap. A mercenary got too close. Tavris met him with a Krythian blade, the movement too fast to track. The man went down choking on his own blood. She didn't pause, just transitioned back to her pistol and kept firing. Forge critical, Ethan called out. 30 seconds. Then we make them count. The mercenaries pushed hard, sensing the endgame. Ethan took a hit to his thigh, deeper this time, sending him to one knee. Tavris was there instantly, dragging him behind cover, her hands already moving to staunch the blood. You are not allowed to die, she said fiercely. Trying my best. The forge reached critical mass. Energy discharge flooded the bay in a wave of electromagnetic chaos. The mercenaries' weapons died, their tactical systems went dark, their communications cut out. For 3 seconds, everything was confusion and darkness. Tavris and Ethan used every second. They moved through the chaos with brutal efficiency, eliminating disoriented targets, pressing their advantage. When the emergency systems finally rebooted, the bay was silent except for their breathing. Bodies littered the floor. Smoke drifted through the air. The forge was destroyed, sparking and cooling in stages. Ethan leaned against a container, hand pressed to his thigh wound. Tavris stood over him, checking perimeters, weapon still ready, despite the blood loss from her shoulder. That was the advance team, she said. I know. Ashford will come himself now. He cannot afford to fail. Good. Ethan looked up at her. Then we end this. Tavris studied him for a long moment, then extended her hand. He took it, let her pull him upright. They stood close, both wounded, both exhausted, both absolutely certain of what came next. We survived this, she said, and we take everything from him. Together. Her hand found his face, thumb tracing his jaw despite the blood and smoke and danger. Together, she agreed. Then the external alarm sounded. A new craft landing, larger than the others. Through the bay's observation window, they could see a military shuttle touching down. Colonel Warren Ashford had arrived. The observation window showed 6 figures disembarking from the shuttle. 5 were standard security detail, military-grade augmentation, synchronized movements. The 6th walked with the confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences. Colonel Warren Ashford looked exactly like his service photos. Silver hair, distinguished bearing, the kind of face that inspired trust in committee hearings. He wore civilian clothes, but moved like the soldier he'd been. He brought his personal guard, Tavris said, watching through a scope. Enhanced reflexes, combat augmentation, elite. Can we take them? We need him alive. She lowered the scope. The command center, 2 levels up, full communications access. We transmit evidence from there. We'll never make it with him hunting us. Then we split up. You go, I draw them away. Ethan grabbed her arm. That's suicide. That is tactical necessity. Her amber eyes met his. You can access human military channels. I cannot. My clearances are Krythian. The bay's external door exploded inward. Military-grade ordnance. The blast wave knocked them both off balance. Through the smoke came Ashford's voice, amplified and controlled. Sergeant Rycroft, I'm disappointed. You were supposed to die quietly. Ethan and Tavris split up, taking positions behind heavy equipment. Ashford's guard entered in perfect formation, weapons sweeping the bay. And Warden Kael, Ashford continued, stepping through the breach. Impressive service record. Pity you couldn't leave well enough alone. Tavris fired first, a shot that would have taken Ashford's head if his guard hadn't intercepted it with an energy shield. The 5 guards spread out, advancing with synchronized movements. Ethan laid down covering fire. Tavris used the opening to circle toward Ashford's flank. 2 guards broke off to intercept her. You killed good soldiers, Ethan called out. People who trusted you. I eliminated security risks, Ashford replied calmly. Soldiers talk, Rycroft. They drink, they confess, they develop consciences. I couldn't allow that. So you murdered them. I maintained operational security. Ashford gestured and his guards pressed the attack. Tavris wasn't the only village. There were others, 7 total. Strategic necessities the politicians would never have approved. Tavris engaged 2 guards simultaneously. She moved with lethal grace, her blade flashing. 1 guard went down with his throat opened. The other blocked her follow-up strike, augmented reflexes matching her natural speed. Ethan tried to help, but 3 guards had him pinned. Energy bolts scorched his cover. His thigh wound was slowing him, vision starting to tunnel. You should have died in that riot, Ashford said, closing the distance. Would have been cleaner. Rage gave Ethan clarity. He rolled from cover, took a hit to his shoulder, but got off 3 shots. The 3rd caught a guard in the face. Tavris killed her second opponent with a strike to the spine. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, moving slower but no less dangerous. The 3 remaining guards converged on her. Ashford pulled a weapon, something custom. He aimed at Ethan with casual certainty. Any last words, Sergeant? The shot came from an unexpected angle. Ashford staggered, his weapon clattering across the floor. He looked down at the hole in his side with surprise. Jaren stood in the open bay door, holding a dropped weapon. His small hands shook, but his aim had been true. You hurt my mama, the boy said. Everything happened at once. Tavris screamed her son's name and threw herself between him and the guards. Ethan lunged for Ashford's dropped weapon. The guards opened fire. Ethan reached the weapon first, came up shooting. 1 guard went down, another. The 3rd took a hit but stayed upright, turning toward Jaren. Tavris was faster. She crossed the distance in an impossible leap, her blade finding the guard's throat before he could fire. They went down together. When the movement stopped, only Tavris rose. She reached Jaren, pulled him close, checking him with shaking hands. The boy was crying but unharmed. Ethan kept his weapon trained on Ashford, who was on his knees, hand pressed to his side. It's over, Ethan said. Laughed, bitter, pained. You think this ends with me? I have protection, political capital. Even if you transmit your evidence, I have people who will bury it. Maybe. Ethan moved closer. But 7 villages worth of families will know what you did. Every soldier you murdered, their families will know. Tavris approached, Jaren in her arms. She looked at Ashford with cold assessment. In Krythian culture, there is a word for what you are. It translates as one who poisons the well. Not just a criminal, something worse. She set Jaren down gently, spoke to him in Krythian. The boy nodded and moved to Ethan, taking his hand. Tavris grabbed Ashford by his collar, hauled him upright with 1 hand. You will stand trial, she said. We will transmit your crimes to every media outlet, every oversight committee, every family of every soldier you murdered. We will make you famous, Colonel, and then we will watch your protections crumble. She threw him against a container hard enough to crack ribs. Ashford collapsed, gasping. Ethan, Tavris said, turning to him, the command center, can you make it? With help. She moved to his side, supporting his weight. Jaren stayed close, his hand never leaving Ethan's. Together they made their way out of the bay, leaving Ashford bleeding with his dead guards. The command center was abandoned. Tavris sealed the door while Ethan accessed the communication systems. His hands shook as he worked. What do you need? Tavris asked. Access codes, multiple channels. The more places we send this, the harder it is to suppress. She pulled up encrypted files, years of evidence. Ethan added his testimony, mission reports, everything. They transmitted to military oversight, independent media, political opposition groups, victim advocacy organizations, dozens of channels simultaneously. It's done, Ethan said, sagging in the chair. Tavris caught him, eased him down gently. She checked his wounds with efficient hands. "You are losing too much blood." "I'll live." "Yes, you will." She pressed her forehead to his. "Because I forbid you to die now." Jaren climbed onto Ethan's lap carefully. He looked up with those huge dark eyes. "Are you my friend now?" the boy asked. Ethan looked at Tavris, saw something in her expression he couldn't name. Hope, maybe. "Yeah, kid, I think I am." Medical teams arrived an hour later. By then, the evidence had spread too far to contain. News feeds across human and Krythian space were running the story. Ashford was in custody, his political protections evaporating. Ethan woke in medical 3 days later to find Tavris sitting beside his bed. She'd been treated too, bandages visible under her shirt. "Jaren?" he asked immediately. "Safe, with my family on the homeworld." She took his hand. "The Krythian government has revoked my authority. I am officially a fugitive for refusing to execute you." "I'm sorry." "Do not be. I made my choice." She leaned closer. "The human government has agreed to reopen your case. New trial, full investigation. You may not walk free, but you will have a chance at actual justice." "And you?" "I have been offered asylum in exchange for testimony against Ashford. I will testify. I will make sure every crime is exposed." Her thumb traced patterns on his hand. "And when your trial comes, I will testify for you too." "You're giving up everything for this." "I am choosing honor over duty." She stood, but didn't release his hand. "When you are healed, we have work to do. 7 villages worth of families who deserve answers. Dozens of dead soldiers whose names need clearing." "We? Did you think I would let you do this alone?" Her smile was fierce. "You saved my son. You helped me expose a military scandal. You made me forget every reason I should hate you." She leaned down, her lips brushing his. "You are stuck with me now, Ethan Rycroft." "I can live with that." "Good, because I do not give second chances." She kissed him properly then, deep and promising. When she pulled back, her amber eyes were bright. "Rest, heal. When you wake again, we begin making things right." Ethan watched her leave, felt something settling in his chest he hadn't experienced in 3 years. Not forgiveness. He'd never forgive himself for Tavris. But purpose, a chance to balance scales with a woman who'd given up everything to stand beside him. Outside, ships moved through space, carrying evidence that would topple empires. And on a Krythian world, a small boy told his grandmother about the human who caught him when he fell. The galaxy would remember Ashford as a monster, but it would also remember Ethan Rycroft as the man who'd taken 8 bullets for a child and found redemption in the arms of the woman who'd come to kill him.